fast. So the ultimate solution was to have red, green, and blue phosphors for each pixel and 3 electron guns to determine their relative brightness. Now the number of lines those electron beams make across the screen is, in theory, 525 every 30th of a
Вот я
second.
тебе и говорю, то есть оно получается вроде как отдельно, вот понимаешь, вот есть реальность, и это как бы вот, а вот она настоящая реальность, это ее как бы, что схема, что за бред? Ну пусть, ну как бы, да. То есть, а на самом деле ни хрена не отдельно, просто есть некая дистанция, которая как бы, ну скажем так, ну да. И эта дистанция, ее, ну как бы, ты вроде хочешь ее лучше сделать, да, правильно, но не получается, да, то есть, да, типа того. Или тебе не, типа того, да.
This is achieved by scanning every other line each 60th of a second. So it actually takes 2 scans to make 1 frame. This is called interlaced. And what you'll notice watching this is that most of the time you're actually staring at a blank screen. The illusion of a continuous moving image is made possible by our persistence of vision. That is, we don't stop seeing something instantaneously after light stops entering our eyes. So initially I was thinking this wouldn't be too hard to film. I mean, a 30th of a second or a 60th of a second, that's not terribly fast. But then if you think about it, 262 and a half lines being drawn every 60th of a second, that is 15,750 lines drawn per second. That is fast. So if you want to be able to see the lines being drawn on, you need to shoot faster than 15,000 frames per second. A lot faster, really, to be able to see this clearly. And so I am using the Phantom V2512. That is the beast that is allowing me to produce these images. Now the actual resolution of these TVs turned out to be around 480 lines. So when you select 480p on YouTube, that's why this is an option. And I guess it's worth pointing out that the tube in YouTube is this thing, the Ray tube. So in the time before light-sensitive chips, like we all use in our cameras today, how did you actually create the image to display on a television? Well, there were many vacuum tube designs. One of the most common was the image orthicon tube, sometimes called IMI for short. In fact, that's where the name Emmys comes from. So the way it would work is you use the camera lens to focus an image onto the front.
Нет, такого не бывает. Я не поверю никогда, что человек, который вот работает, просто вот работает, и как бы у него все нормально, понимаешь? Потому что у тебя или жизнь будет вот так, да, понимаю. То есть, или ты сам просто что-то хотеть будешь. Ну хотя бы денег больше, давай как-нибудь. Что тебе там? Начальник, я не знаю, мне вообще насрать, я просто тебе от балды говорю, да. Да, понимаю, там, да.
Of the image orthicon tube, and that was coated with a photoelectric substance, so it would release electrons in proportion to the light.
Нет намерения в этой области работать вообще.
And sent straight back, so essentially you had an electron version of the image sent straight back to a target, which was a very, very thin glass plate. And of course, where there's more electrons, that creates a more negative spot on this target. From the back of the tube, you'd send forward an electron beam to scan across the target. And so these electrons, as they came in, the more negative a spot that was on the target, the more that beam would get reflected. And so that reflected beam was amplified in the tube and then used as the signal to essentially determine how bright that part of the image should be. So this is how television images were created and displayed for decades. But here is the crazy thing. There was no way to record them. I mean, the purpose of video, or the purpose of electronic images, was really to transmit something from one place to another. Television literally means seeing at a distance. It's not about recording for replaying later, as film was. The thing that blew me away was realizing that video cameras existed for a couple decades before videotape.
That's right. That was the era of live broadcasting.
But this introduced some problems. For example, in North America, in the US, a lot of the TV programs were produced out in New York. And there was a coaxial cable which went across the whole of the US, and that could deliver programming to, say, Los Angeles. But it was at the wrong time. I mean, a news broadcast from New York at 6 or 7 p.m. couldn't just be broadcast live at 3 or 4 p.m. on the West Coast. It just didn't make any sense. So you needed to time delay it. So how did they do it? Well, the answer was to take a film camera, a cinema camera, and point it at a television screen, and actually film the television screen. Then you would quickly develop the film and bring it back 3 hours later to broadcast it live, to scan it in and broadcast that film as though it were live.
But now, when I bring it back to the TV studio and stick it into the telecine, the picture doesn't look right. The lines aren't lining up right. And besides, you're trying to sample two sets of lines back together, and they don't.
This became such a prevalent method of doing business for the TV networks that by 1954, the television networks, to time delay their programming, were using more film than all the film studios in Hollywood combined. This is absurd and expensive and wasteful. So a different method was really needed. And that came along in 1956 with the invention of the first workable videotape recorder. It was the size of a large desk, and it cost a fortune. It ran on this 2-inch magnetic tape with little video heads spinning at 14,000 RPM. We're talking as fast as a jet engine. That is the kind of technology it took before video became what we kind of know it as today, a method of recording and storing images rather than a way of just transmitting vision from one place to another. But we've come a long way since then, miniaturizing the tapes down into VHS and Beta, and eventually down to DV and mini DV, and now we are on to solid state storage. And I know I've glossed over a lot of the history here, but now we're in a situation where video is better than film. You can see that in 2012, that was the inflection point between people using film to shoot the top grossing movies, changing over to people using digital. And what this has done for people like you and me is it's made it possible to make really good images. And the question I have is, what does this do to a society? What might it do when people can share every part of their lives with video? This part of this video was sponsored by B&H Photo, literally one of my favorite stores in the world.
Hey everyone, my name is Jaser. In today's video we're going to be talking about piano arpeggios. What are piano arpeggios and why are they important to you? A piano arpeggio is basically a chord that is broken up. So this is a chord, and arpeggio is basically that but broken up. So that's an arpeggio, or this, or this. These are all arpeggios. Why are piano arpeggios important to you? They're important because they're found everywhere in music. You can find them in all areas of music. For example, in classical music, you find them in things like these are arpeggios, chords, or that are broken up. Or even, for example, things like maybe even that is an arpeggio, okay? Chords that are just broken up. In this beginner arpeggio lesson, we're not going to go past the octave mark, so everything we're going to be doing is within the octave. However, I will challenge your brain with playing arpeggios with different chords. My hope is that these challenges are easy enough for you to start, but not so easy enough for you that you can get it in your first go without much practice. Let's quickly get into it. I'll briefly introduce the chords first, okay? The chords you'll be using in this video are the C chord. You need the E minor chord. You need the A minor chord. And finally the F. And just before we get into the challenges, remember to like and subscribe to this channel to stay in touch with more of these free piano lessons and tutorials. Let's get into level 1. Level 1 is called the basic arpeggio. This is where both hands are going to be playing the same notes. So just look at what I'm doing and follow along, please. And then we're going to go to the E minor chord, so just move your thumb to the B. And then next is the A minor chord, which is... Finally, the F chord. Okay, when it comes to arpeggios, one of the more important things to talk about is
Здорово.